In today's video, I'm going to be sharing the most outrageous and rudest things medical doctors have ever told me. Stay tuned because that's coming all right up. Hey guys, it's Effie. Welcome back to my channel where I share the good, the bad, and the ugly of living with a chronic illness and other various lifestyle topics. And as always, make sure to check the About section on my YouTube channel where you will be able to see a more detailed list of things you can expect to find on here. I am in no way trying to discredit any medical doctor or say that all doctors are bad or that all doctors are dickheads, which actually was a trending hashtag on Twitter not too long ago. And thousands of people tweeted their experiences with bad doctors. And some of these that are popping up here are not all of them. However, I took to Twitter to extract, the ones that I felt you guys can maybe pause and read if you have time. And even go check out the hashtag yourself by typing in hashtag doctors are dickheads on Twitter if you have Twitter. If not, maybe you can try Googling it. I'm not really sure if it will pop up for you guys. But in any case, if you're interested, you can look into more of that. So as we all know, there are good apples and bad apples in pretty much everything in life, right? So just because I have had a bad experience with a doctor or someone else has had a bad experience with a doctor doesn't mean that the next person or you even watching will have the same experience. So I'm just sharing a little bit of what happened in my journey in regards to bad doctors that I have come across, and in hopes that maybe someone watching, maybe be a medical professional or someone who's maybe considering going into the medical field, or even a patient or a loved one who's watching for someone that they know who seeks medical care frequently or just is interested in this, maybe we'll be able to see that they are not alone in these experiences, get some advice and tips from what I'm saying. And also, if you are a medical doctor, take note and be a little mindful of how you communicate with patients. So I felt compelled to make this video because I feel that my experiences that I have had made a really big lasting impact, especially in the beginning years of my diagnosis when these occurred. As anyone who is living with an illness and you just get diagnosed, you don't really know what to expect in regards to how to handle doctor's appointments or anything of the sort that they don't really tell you at the office, right? And with that being said, I'm going to share the least favorite and the most favorite. And take note that when I say favorite, none of these are good at all. But the least favorite was something that really impacted me. And my most favorite is the most amusing thing that I found in regards to this one doctor and the audacity he had in saying this certain phrase or thing to me. So let's jump into the first one. For many of you who don't know, and I've said this repeatedly in my videos, I don't want to bore you, but I was diagnosed with juvenile arthritis when I was 18 years old. I had symptoms a couple of years prior, and I was diagnosed in 2004, went for a second opinion at Mayo Clinic in 2005. And so for the beginning years, my hands and my wrists were the only things impacted. And a couple years or so going into my diagnosis, I started having elbow issues. I was seeing an occupational therapist, physical therapist, going to the gym frequently. I was very active. And so one day when I saw my occupational therapist, she was like, have you ever considered maybe possibly going to see an orthopedic surgeon? During that time, while I did have mild damage, I didn't really think that I needed to go necessarily to seek an orthopedic opinion. And she was like, well, it doesn't hurt, just go see maybe what he would say. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. It doesn't hurt to get information, right? And just keep it in the back burner because you never know if I will need to do it. And fast forward several years later, I probably will need elbow surgery. I've gone for many more consultations since that one, and they were amazing. And, you know, I'm not ready for surgery yet in my elbow, but when I am, I know that I have really good people, but also like other resources out of state or whatever. And I feel prepared if I ever do need to go down that road whenever that is meant to travel on. And so, yeah, basically she was like, he's so nice. I work with him all the time. And my occupational therapist, she's a sweetheart. So I was just like, okay, you know, like, awesome. He's nice, and why not, you know, go check out and see what he has to say. Because prior to that, I had really horrible experiences, which I'm saving for the last part of this video. So hearing that someone was a kind doctor and considerate and all that stuff was a little refreshing to me. So I went in there really excited, and the day I had my appointment, I was a little bit more dressed up. I was wearing like my nice leggings, my fall boots, because it was fall when I went, my nice jacket. I was actually planning to go out after the appointment. So side note right here, I don't know if anyone watching, if you guys, when you go to your doctor's appointments, you dress up or anything. I mean, for me, I shower and I prepare in that way, but I don't really go all out in wearing makeup or wearing nice clothes. That day was a little bit different for me. And I had like this crossbody bag, could fit a lot of stuff. And it was my favorite purse. I brought it everywhere. And then I sat in the office, I got checked in, and then I put the person next to me on the chair and I was waiting for him to come in. And so then he comes in and he asks me some questions. He looks at my hands, he looks at my elbow, and he was just like, you know, a lot of people don't really have these issues anymore due to the medications out there. And mind you, we had a 10 to 20 minute conversation prior to him saying this, of me giving him detailed information of all the medications I was on, of everything I've done. And I gave him even bullet points, a thesis. You know, I was very thorough. And I'm just like, okay, well, right now you are seeing a situation like this, so what do you recommend? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not coming here for you to tell me what I already know. I know that there's people out there who don't have any signs of joint damage. That's fine. That's them, though. I'm not talking about anyone else right now. I'm here to discuss me and my life and my health. So it was just really inconsiderate of him to even say that. And then he went like, you know, you're only going to be able to lift a certain amount of pounds after you do elbow surgery. You know that, right? I'm like, I've heard, but, you know, this is why I'm coming to talk to you, so you as the professional can fill me in on all these things, right? And so I was like, well, you know, give me some examples. Like, what do you mean? What wouldn't I be able to maybe lift up as easily as I would be able to right now? And he was like, well, a milk carton, a grocery bag. I'm like, okay. And he looked at my purse and he lifted my purse up. He's like, well, say goodbye to carrying this anymore. And then he threw it back down on my chair. And I had gotten that as a gift, actually, for my birthday. So I was like, what is this guy's deal? He's the rudest person on earth. So I don't know if this particular orthopedic surgeon was a nice doctor or not, because I saw him once, but from my experience, he was the worst. And, you know, he could have been having a bad day. Maybe he got pulled over, got a ticket. Maybe his wife was cheating on him. He wasn't getting any. I don't know, you know, but he didn't have to take it out of me. Whatever his problem was, he needs to tone it down a notch. And so that was the last time I ever went and saw him. And he exited the office, and then the nurse, who was this very lovely lady, by the way, this older woman, she came and gave me the after summary report, which is what they usually do, unless you want it mailed to you or emailed, whatever. And then she gave me a whole list of doctors, orthopedic surgeons I can see, and she circled the names of the best ones, and she's like, you know, sweetie, I don't know if he's going to be able to help you or not, but I went ahead and printed out all this information for you so you can have it and look at it at your own leisure and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. It was very nice of her. She didn't have to go out of her way to do that. And as a doctor, he was a pussy. Like, he could have told me that himself. Like, if you don't think you can help me, sir, why don't you just tell me that instead of wasting 30 minutes of my life? You know what I mean? Let's cut to the chase. Look at what you need to look at, examine me, whatever you need to do, and be like, hey, you know what? I treat more broken wrists. I treat tendon issues or minor things. I don't go into this moderate aggressive side of surgeries. Okay, that's fine. That's all you need to tell me. You don't need to sit down and grill me telling me I should have, you know, look into this. I should look into that. I know. You know what I mean? I've been on those new drugs. I was on Enbrel in 2005. That was one of the new biologics out ever. Before that, no one even had a biologic. So I tried the new shiny object. It didn't work for me. He wasn't listening. He wasn't compassionate. I've now found other people who are more professional and nice. One thing that happened to me in 2016 when I had my total knee replacement. And for many of you who know about hospital insurance rules and have had surgery in the hospital before, they don't really like you staying too long. This is why a lot of people tend to stay in the hospital for about 3 days maximum. Some people get to leave the day after their procedure, depending on what it is and how they're doing. So if you've ever been in a hospital room when there's people coming in and out asking your significant other, family member, friend questions, it's because they want to see how they're feeling in order to safely discharge them. But I wasn't necessarily ready to go home because my leg felt really heavy and I wasn't really in the state to go climb these 2 little steps up and down that they make you do in order to be cleared of the hospital stay. My leg was still really swollen, and I remember, and this is going to be a little side story of a nurse situation, because we all have probably had experiences with bad nurses as well. And this one nurse, I had to go pee, and because when you're having surgery, you need to rely on either a family member or the nurse. And my mom was there, but since the nurse and the physical therapist were in the room, they were like, we'll help her, it's fine. So my mom was just standing there. And then I was in my brace, and I was kind of scared to put my leg down because it was like one of the first couple days. And then she was like, just go. And she lifted up my leg and she pulled it off the bed. So I was like, whoa, like chill. And then they thought that I was anxious and everything when I was like, I'm not feeling well. I feel dizzy because one of the pain medications that they gave me, that didn't really sit well with my stomach. And I was just like, I'm not feeling well. I need to sit down. They're like, no, you're probably just really anxious. I'm like, no, I'm not anxious. I don't feel good. I'm going to throw up on you. And she was like, no. And then the nurse was there, and then my face started turning white. And they're like, she should sit down. And then I threw up. And I was like, okay, moving on. And so that was 2 instances that happened before this doctor decided to swoop in and make my stay even better. This was the 3rd or the 4th day, and by this time, I was supposed to be getting ready to pack my bags and go home. But like I said, my knee was swollen. I still wasn't able to do what I needed to do. And this amazing nurse that was there with me day in and day out, I'm thinking of literally writing her a note, a thank you note, and if she's still there, that is. Because she was like one of those people where, like, if your mom's not there, you felt like your mom was there. And so anyways, and she wasn't in there at the time. My family decided to go home and shower, get something to eat. So I was like, okay, no problem. I'll stay in the room myself. And by that point, I was kind of used to my whole routine. I had my food on my tray, and I was, listening to my music or whatever, watching TV. I was chilling. And then all of a sudden, Walt is in, this surgeon. I have no idea who he is. He was kind of on duty for the hall that I was on. He was going room into room. And he looked at my chart and everything. He's like, so how you feeling? I'm like, well, not that great to go home. Like my knee is swollen, and I tried walking actually up those 2 steps like I told you guys with those nurses, and my stitch bled out onto the gauze. So I was like, I just had some issues. That wasn't serious, by the way, but I think me bleeding out a little bit maybe made some scar tissue, right? But regardless, I was explaining things, and then I guess maybe he got aggravated. I don't know. I wasn't, saying anything that he shouldn't have known. And I guess he was asking me something else. I don't remember how this happened. And then I was about to say something, and he's like, stop talking. I'm like, so you're going to come in here and attack me while no one's in my room? Because I'm sure you wouldn't say this if my mom or my siblings were in here or if anyone else was in here. And I didn't say anything to him. This was all in my mind after he left, that is. But I was in such shock. I was on pain medication. I was out of it, trying to stay afloat through this whole traumatic experience because I've never broken a bone or had surgery before. And this guy is telling me to stop talking, and in a very angry tone too. He just screamed at me. And I wasn't raising my voice at him. If he caught me at a good time and I felt in the mood to tell them off, I would have. If you have a problem with someone answering your questions, and I wasn't going into long tangents either, I was pretty short and to the point, okay? I wasn't wasting too much of his time. And if I was, who cares? But again, I wasn't. But in the instance where there might be a patient who needs to explain themselves, you need to sit there and listen. You chose that profession. You chose this job. No one forced you. I actually looked up him up because I saw the chart or whatever. I was able to get the name. And he had the worst reviews. People said he was mean. He was inconsiderate. All these other things. So I wasn't, going crazy or anything, thinking like, is it just me? No, it's not. So moving on to my most favorite. This is the last one. There probably is a lot more that happened, but right now I'm forgetting them for some reason. Though these are, I think, the main ones that you guys can probably sit here and listen through. So this happened in 2005. I went for a second opinion at Mayo Clinic. It took me 6 months to get in to see these people. The rheumatology department, that is. 6 months is a half a year. To put into perspective, it's a long time. But it was in the dead of winter, and I wasn't feeling well at all. And it was just such a tiring experience. Doctor after doctor, paperwork after paperwork. It's like, enough already. Like, I needed a vacation even after that, So I had an appointment with the head rheumatologist and one of his colleagues. I was 18 at the time. I had no signs of RA, really. And the head rheumatologist, we were talking, and he was like, you probably won't live till this number. And I'm not going to put it out into the universe because we don't believe in that over here on this channel. If anyone has a parent who was born during the baby boomer days, that's what he said to me. Yeah, of course, my blood labs were like off the roof. Everything was raised. That's the point why we get on medication or we try alternative therapies. He said this in front of my loved ones. And I just stared at him. I'm like, okay. And I was like, how is he even saying that to me? First of all, like, how does he know? He's not God. He doesn't know my destiny. I wasn't in a bad state for him to be like, you're going to have this amount of time to live. And for doctors who do say that to patients who've had cancer or anything else, I've met a lot of people who've been given months or years to live, and they've surpassed those expectations, and they're living 20, 30, 40 years more. That was a really, fear-mongering thing that doctor did. And this is before I started any medication. This is before anything. I and my family members, we took the opportunity to go for a second opinion to maybe get some more clarity, not to be put down in such a negative space. So imagine you're 18, right? You're still in high school. You have about, 6 months left till you graduate and you start your college career. You haven't started medication. Everyone's saying this medication will do that to you. This medication will do this to you. And you're terrified. You don't know what's going to come of your life. And then here you are sitting in front of a person who is supposedly head of rheumatology telling you that you are going to live until this age. What do you think that's going to do to a patient who is already scared of taking medication, whose loved ones don't know much about the disease because no other family member has it? What do you think people are going to do? They're going to go home and throw your prescription in the trash. They're going to not want to take it. They're going to want to do a lot of other things. At the time they were like, the only combination that will work for you is Emerald methotrexate. Okay, well, I was going to take that combination. And they told me, well, since you're a young woman, you're not going to be able to get pregnant on a methotrexate or probably have kids ever if you started at this young age. So here I am. I'm like, okay, well, what medication do I try? I guess I'll just do Emerald then. And they gave me high-dose ibuprofen. They forwarded me to a doctor here in the city who was actually top doctor, who was horrible as well. Yeah, I'm on methotrexate now. And I met a doctor recently when I had to switch, who eventually I may see because she actually treats pediatric patients and adult rheumatology. And she is a researcher in women's health, and she helps a lot of women get pregnant and all this other stuff safely. So I just wanted just someone to maybe give me some clarification on this issue that I have been told can never really happen if I'm on so-and-so medicine. And she's like, no. She's like, there's no problem. Even the one rheumatologist who I had briefly for a period of time before I moved on to the one that was retiring. He said, I have a lot of women on methotrexate. They're totally fine. He's like, I don't know what your other doctors were talking about. So actually one doctor who didn't want to prescribe me methotrexate, and when I say she didn't want to, she really didn't want to. And this was really messed up because she had a patient who was in her teens who got pregnant while taking methotrexate. And at the time I was seeing her, this was one of the beginning doctors after that really bad one in the city. She was like, well, you know, I don't know. I just prefer my patients not to be on methotrexate. And I was like, okay, I understand the story that you're telling me about this teenager. I don't know her. She just denied me methotrexate. And she was only offering me one drug, Orencia infusions. And at this time, Orencia was very new onto the market. It was about 1 or 2 years, and it was still not available in syringes. And I'm like, well, I'm not comfortable doing an infusion. I have my own personal reasons why I don't want an infusion. And I should be able, as a patient, to be able to express that to her and say, hey, like, I want a syringe. That's what I'm used to. She didn't give me methotrexate because of that experience. And that is something that you cannot do. You cannot deny a patient a medication for a reason that has nothing to do with them. So she ended up leaving the practice, and she was one of the worst. Like, she only had me on azolfidine. She was refusing to put me on other drugs. I had already tried Enbrel and Humira at the time, and Enbrel had stopped working. I got rashes on Humira, which ended up being an underlying issue, viral issue, Epstein-Barr, that caused that because I had those rashes before I got diagnosed. But long story short, what a nightmare. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone, seriously, or a really bad dream where I'm trying to say I need something and the doctor's like, but no, I can't give that to you. It was like that, but in real life. So yeah, so she ended up leaving the practice to be a researcher in California. Don't know what that means. Probably she ain't doing shit, and I hope she isn't, because she really made my health worse. And yes, I could have seen another doctor, but again, it's not that easy when you have to wait weeks, months, and sometimes years to see people. So eventually I moved on. But yeah, that rheumatologist in Mayo Clinic, sorry to go on this little tangent about that, but it had to be said. Yeah, I just, like, that was the start of my journey. And for him to say you're going to live this amount of years really tainted my experience. Like, I didn't have any positivity going into it, and I had to find that own positivity within me and within those people around me who boosted me up. Obviously, you can't expect a medical professional to say things you want to hear, or, sugarcoat things. And I'm not saying medical professionals should, but sometimes people don't want tough love from people they don't know, especially a doctor, right? And this wasn't really even tough love. This was just being tough for what? You know what I mean? Like, people have to understand, especially medical professionals, that when a patient comes into your office, it has taken them an extreme amount of energy to do so, because they are, one, scared. They don't know what to expect, and they don't want to be put on a medication that can cause X, Y, and Z. They don't have the financial support. They have had to wait a long time to see you. And so when they sit down in that chair, they're finally taking that sigh, and they're like, hopefully I'll get some help. So when these patients have similar experiences to what I'm sharing throughout this video, you prove them right. That you are a dickhead, that you are a douchebag, that all doctors are bad, that conventional medicine is bad. And so I remember asking that doctor at Mayo Clinic about alternative therapies, because it was my right to ask. And he was like, well, there was a woman that we saw here once who decided to travel to East Asian countries like India and other parts of Asia, and she came back in a wheelchair, very crippled. I was like, oh, that's great. So actually 2-3 years ago, I came across a Facebook group, and it was a support group for those living with rheumatoid arthritis, and there was a thread that someone had started about people discussing their diagnosis journeys, and there was this one guy who wrote under it, and he said that he went to Mayo Clinic around the same time I did, 2005, 2006-ish, and he said that he was talking to the head of rheumatology, which was probably the person I did, if it was exactly around that time, and he asked him about alternative therapies as well. And once he asked that question, he literally kicked him out and said, get out of my office. I don't want you in here. So I guess that doctor there, rheumatologist, whatever, He was asked that question probably a lot by patients, and it's our right to ask. We have a right to know our options and what could work for us or not. So if anyone's watching and you have gone through the same thing and had your own experiences, please comment below and let me know what your stories are. And again, we're not saying all doctors are bad. You know, I've had my fair share of good, bad, and excellent doctors. And it just sometimes takes time to weed out the bad ones. And unfortunately, there are some doctors out there who really do have a track record for being dickheads. That's just how it is. And before I go, I actually want to give a special announcement that I'm going to be giving 2 Spoonie Star Supporter of the Week shout-outs. So here's my first Spoonie Star Supporter of the Week shout-out. Thank you so much for showing me love on my Instagram.